Hello, you all. You are tuning in to the Audible Weed Walk, episode 57, and this is Nina welcoming you. How many of you were fussy eaters like me growing up? I distinctly remember being fed. I was being fed because left to me, I will linger, procrastinate, and eventually more of the food on my plate would end up in the tummy of my devoted German shepherd called Bonnie, who patiently sat under the table in close attention. I was even, at least jokingly, was offered that my food could be blended together and all I have to do is gulp the mixture. While that never appealed to me, I must say that I dreamt of a day where I just have to pop some pills instead of eating any food. Unknowingly, I was imagining a nightmare where not medicine, which is to be taken rarely only when one is unwell, or supplement, which is also a medicinal intake of usually micronutrients under the supervision of a medical practitioner for a limited time. But I was imagining food itself to be diminished to that, which, according to the experts, will have devastating consequences. Why are we talking about all this? Well, because I have been reading about and listening to experts talking about the mandatory food fortification regulation, which is new in India, and ASHA Kisan Swaraj, which is a NGO, had organized an amazingly informative webinar. I gathered from that, in January this year, FSSAI, which is the Food Safety and Standard Authority in India, has issued a draft regulation on mandatory fortification of edible oil milk with vitamin A and D. It has also proposed to make rice fortification mandatory with vitamin B12, iron, and folic acid starting 2024. Flour, which is wheat flour, will also be fortified. What does it mean? It means increasingly those who are poor, marginalized, who are dependent on the public distribution system or PDS will have no choice but to receive this fortified rice and fortified flour. According to the experts, this, if it happens, will be ignoring science and causing further disasters and inequity rather than solving anything. I know some of you have already may have internal dialogue like me saying, what's wrong in fortification? Authorities have tried many means to actually solve India's sliding hunger index and nutrition index. So if by eating rice and chapati, people can also get essential nutrients like iron, what's wrong with that? Well, let me explain briefly what I understood by taking an example. But before that, I would also like to highlight that some of the issues that are very topical for this particular case, I had already discussed in the podcast number 42, which is titled No Need for GM. If you're interested, please catch that also. So let's take iron as an example. India has many pan-India health issues, of which anemia and diabetes are two. Some experts express that since iron is tested by blood collected from the capillary, which is with a finger prick, it is not the best way to test because testing from the finger prick actually shows a lower value. Hence, there is an over-reporting of anemia. But let's assume that despite some over-reporting, anemia is quite prevalent in India, especially amongst the poor, those who are in the lower in the caste ladder, and yes, we are still living in that terrible reality, and women and children within that group especially. Like me, you must be now thinking that anemia, okay, that can be addressed with iron, right? Hence, it's a good idea to fortify grains with iron, and then there is no need to purchase iron supplements separately. Not so. For the body to absorb iron and convert the iron to hemoglobin, which is ultimately the aim to foster better health, it requires not just iron. The body needs protein of various types that allow absorption, transportation, and some macronutrients also. So, anemia is due to several food nutrient deficiency and not just iron. So, delivering iron in form of fortification, will that help? Now come to some interesting parts. Listen up. It seems fibers in food make it difficult to fortify. Hence, for wheat, for example, for iron fortification, it has to be converted to maida flour first, which is refined flour. This is exactly what is done in the West. In the West, a lot of the wheat, unless you are buying whole wheat, it is already fortified, and it's maida. Since this fortified maida will be distributed via the PDS or the public distribution system, you can imagine the consequences of this in a country that luckily overwhelmingly consumes whole wheat. So the whole wheat will be there, but it will not be accessible to the poor so much, because the PDS will be distributing this maida fortified with iron. So suppose one takes the iron fortified food. What does it do? No, you will not fall sick. Nothing happens immediately, but it actually causes imbalance. Imbalance in the intestine, imbalance in the gut microflora. In addition, unnatural iron, the iron that comes in the supplement, is not easy for the body to process. Even in natural form, when we take iron, only 5 to 8% of the iron is absorbed by the body. And that even with the right kind of micronutrient and protein when they're available. Animal protein increases the absorption of iron and hence the conversion to hemoglobin. The rest of the natural iron that the body intakes is actually disposed of by the body. But if it is supplement, this gets stored in the body. So the iron in the form of ferritin gets stored in the body. This adversely affects pancreatic beta cells and hence increases the chance for diabetes 4 to 5 times. Yikes. Remember, India is already considered the diabetes capital of the world. Moreover, there is a documented evidence available according to the experts that iron fortification increases the risk of both malaria and tuberculosis. So once again, 2 major killers. And who does all this affect most? Yes, the poor, the disadvantaged, and also women and children among them. Don't get the experts wrong. They are not saying food fortification is bad, but likely it's just like any other tool to be used appropriately. When goiter and mental health issues showed up significantly in India, more so in the hills, iodine fortification in salt was the solution. Iodine was the solution because anemia iron is not, because of several reasons. First of all, it was addressing condition. Moreover, iron doesn't get stored in the body. Iron does. Enough of all this, right? Now let's come to the solution. What are these? What are the solution? All experts unanimously suggested natural food and diversity in food are the only solutions. For that, we need is a change in policy encouraging decentralization of agriculture and thereby food, including the PDS distribution, to go more local, natural, and healthy. Food that is here and now, available and accessible to people. Instead, one of the experts informed that poor people have less fresh vegetables anyway. This is not just in India. This is the same case in the USA also. Poor eats more canned and processed food. In India, experts highlighted, apart from not having adequate fresh vegetables, families have dal or pulses once a week and sometimes even once a month. That's the only kind of vegetable protein that we should have usually constantly in our diet, but it's unaffordable for a lot of people. Same with meat or fish. instead of addressing these underlying causes and making more food accessible, diverse food accessible and local, just fortification will be like offering a solution that may be convenient for some, but will be troublesome. Dr. Vandana Prasad says that food diversity is part of human rights. She highlighted that having decent food is having diverse natural food that allows the right balance, allows the body to absorb the correct amount of nutrient which comes from a good balanced diet and not end up getting stored in the body, is what we need to see. And just fortification and what we are thinking that these distribution through PDS will create is quite an havoc. It is clear that mandatory food fortification will affect the most vulnerable group in the society. The rest of us will be able to access healthy, nutritious, natural local food if we choose to. Is that fair? You think about it. Who will it help? One of the experts highlighted how this will destroy the local economy as well. Food fortification requires relatively advanced technology, and local mom-and-pop kirana grain mills will not be able to do this. So slowly their businesses will also dwindle and they'll perish. So more people will add on to this, being dependent on the PDS, and more people will have this fortified processed food. Moreover, it will unduly favor the large mills and the corporate food sectors. So where do the wild, weedy, uncultivated greens comes in? Tune in to your here and now. Come and join me in weedy workshops and get a weed book. Donate or help generate funds for 2 more books who are standing in the line to be published. Sponsor to take some of the books and workshops to the women's group so that they could cook nutritious food for their families. Help us take these information to schools, to the teachers and parents, and definitely the children, the change makers of the future. Actually, yesterday I posted a meme I found. It lists the real education one should teach children in schools, and among them includes growing food, foraging, preparing food, preserving food, saving seeds, composting, water conservation, and such. Let us focus on this real here and now to have a better collective future. With that thought, I end here today. See you next week. Stay well and stay safe.